and we had made the final payment, remember? And we took that picture and we posted it on social media, and we were just so excited, so elated. I wanted to eat steak that night, but his mother wasn't cooking steak. We ate whatever she made, but you know what? In my mind, it tasted like steak.
I love talking about increasing your net worth. This is our barometer for wealth building success. Today, we're going to speak with a couple who has grown their net worth to over $1 million by their mid-40s. Dr. Renee and Nii Darko are our guests today. These two live with their children in New Jersey, and when they are not building their family wealth, they love to travel and support other doctors through their podcast. Welcome to the show, Renee and Nii.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, we're excited to be here, Andy.
Absolutely. Thank you for being here, and thank you for being transparent about your wealth building journey so other people can thrive as well. So let's look back a little bit. What was your motivation for building wealth as a couple to begin with?
Nobody likes to be broke, Andy.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's sometimes it's really hard to really, I think for people who aren't physicians, for people to realize that a two-physician couple or household could be broke, but that's where we were. So when we graduated and we got married, we combined our finances. We had combined almost $700,000 of student loan debt. I had a townhome in Atlanta that I was an accidental landlord in. So that was like $170,000, $180,000. Renee had some IRS tax debt when she was on the lam and so forth that we had to take care of. So realistically, we almost were close to about $900,000 in debt. And this was literally as soon as we got married. So we really were behind the 8 ball.
Yeah.
And that was not what we expected as first generation. Yeah. So that was a huge motivation to be like, we have to get out of this situation as quickly as possible.
Yeah. Renee, were you guys on the same page with that when that started? Or was it like, hey, this is what it is, and let's just keep chugging along? What were those conversations like between you and Nii?
Yeah, we were fortunate. I always say that we were fortunate that we were on the same page, because it's not always easy as a couple to be on the same page about these things, right? So I would say that we're not both spenders. And so the conversations came relatively easy. Obviously, the planning of it was a little bit contentious. What should we attack first? What should get paid first? But as far as the overall goal being the same, was pretty easy for us to come to a conclusion that, listen, we don't want to be broke anymore. Let's get this debt out of the way and start building our net worth.
I love it. So was net worth the goal, or what was the first goal? Did you say we got to get rid of these loans? What was the first goal?
Yeah, the first goal was getting out of debt. That was the first goal, was getting out of debt, because that had a direct effect on where we worked. Our families are either in the New York, New Jersey area. So our first job was about 5 to 6 hours away. So we never envisioned being that far away from family. We both come from close-knit families. So to just kind of have a life where we are that far away from either her family or our family just really wasn't desirable. And so we knew that the direct cause of that was because we had to find cheaper housing. We had to find someplace that was cheaper. And we found a great job. It's just that it was far away. So we knew the debt had to go out immediately.
Got it.
As we started paying off the debt, we started discovering podcasts, discovering YouTube videos, and realized that there was an entire community of people who were trying to build a net worth, were trying to really get to a point where they could manage not only just their job and their salary, but also at the same time build something so that they're not working at the same job, at the same position into their 60s. And that kind of just changed our entire focus, because we weren't really thinking about that.
Yeah.
We were just kind of just happy to become doctors and just say, this is how we're going to work until we die. And that's it.
Right.
So there was no direction really until we found a community.
Yeah, I think that's great. So talk about, yes, you got the motivation. And then after finding that community and the motivation, what were the first steps that you took then to start tackling this debt? And I know, I'll be honest with you, I don't know a lot about large student loan debt, especially when it comes to doctors and PSFL and all these other acronyms that I don't really know much about. How did you guys handle that? How did you start with that?
The first thing that we did actually was we made a pact. The important thing was we made a pact not to create any more debt.
Yeah, that was huge.
That was huge. It was like, I don't care what happens. We're not going to create any more debt. And so, we shook on it, kissed on it, whatever you want to call it. We made that pact. The second thing that we did actually was we took a look at our expenses over the last 3 months. And that meeting actually took a really long time because once we realized that, what we were spending our money on, we definitely realized, okay, the whole saying of show me your budget, I'll show you your priority. It was like, wow, we need to rearrange our priorities.
Yeah, we were spending a significant amount of money on food at work.
Mm-hmm.
We were buying a significant amount of money of food at home, but we weren't cooking it.
Mhm.
So there was a bunch of perishables that were just literally perishing away in the refrigerator.
And we were dining out a lot.
Yeah.
It was just, it really was just that our money was being misappropriated, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And once we realized that, we said, okay, well, we need to rearrange our priorities. One of the first things that we actually did was we looked at how much we were paying in life insurance and disability insurance. And we realized that our life and disability insurance payments were much more than our student loan payments.
Yeah. Wow.
And that's when we both got angry at the same time. And we're like, that's it. Like, we definitely need to get rid of this. So
yeah, and we weren't until we looked at the expenditures, what was coming in and what was coming out. We were happy to pay our whole life and our disability insurance. Like, oh yeah, that's just a payment that we have to pay. But then we started getting our student loan payments, which were lower than that, and we'd be angry.
Right.
And I was like, wait, this doesn't make sense. Until we looked at the numbers, we're like, we're putting more money into something that's not really getting us a benefit. Whereas the student loan payment, which we should be aggressively paying off, we're really angry about that. And that's where we really started to change our focus. And the first things we did is we got rid of our whole life plan for us. It just didn't make sense for us. Mm-hmm. We got a term life insurance policy, which was significantly cheaper. And then we got disability insurance that was a little bit more economical, reasonable for us. And that really started letting us know, our money, if we budget better, can be spent wiser, and we can aggressively pay off our student loan debt. Yeah. Initially, we thought we were going to pay it off in 10 years?
I think we originally thought it was going to be about 15 years.
Yeah, that's true.
And so we ended up paying our student loan debt, which totaled at that point $662,000 in 3 years. Because we just got that much more aggressive. And I mean, that's a whole story in and of itself.
Living apart for like 7 months at a time. It was crazy.
Yeah, it was crazy because we started working. We started doing something called locums, which essentially is independent contracting for doctors. So in addition to our permanent jobs that we were working, we were also doing this contracting on the side. And so that required that we lived apart for, 2 weeks out of the month at a time, but it brought in a lot more money for us, and we were aggressively just throwing it at the debt.
Wow. Yeah, that 3 years I'm sure was very hard, and I know we breezed over it very, very much. I mean, was there a point during that 3 years where you saw that number 600,000+ and it just crippled you? I mean, how did you move forward?
Yeah, I think the biggest problem that we had was when we saw the numbers, we were like, what are we going to do? But I think when we got together and realized that her debt wasn't just her debt, my debt wasn't just my debt, and you do you, I'll do me, I'll see you in 15 years of retirement or 20 years of retirement. We said, let's make a plan together. Let's start thinking about how we want our lives to look in 3 years, 5 years, 20 years. And if that's the case, then we're going to have to work together to get this done. So I think the biggest thing that the biggest win that we had was when we sold and got rid of our whole life insurance. We got a significant amount of money back past the surrender value. We took that money, we didn't spend it, we didn't invest it. We took that money and put it into our student loans. And I made a significant dent into our private loan debt. And when we saw that, we're like,
this debt could actually go down.
Right. And
principal.
And when you see the interest payments decrease because there's less interest accumulating on the principal that we paid down, then we're like,
this is possible.
This is possible. So that's when we made a plan and said, okay, the higher interest rate is with the private loans, but it's the lower amount. Let's aggressively take that out first. Yeah. And then from there, we'll just change the line items and go after our federal loans, which are lower interest rate, but significant higher amount. And we just stay true. Now, there were times when I was down and she picked me up. And there were times when she was down and she wants to get, whatever it may want to be. And I may want to get whatever. We just kind of motivated each other. And then also at the same time, that's where the virtual mentorship, the podcast, the YouTubes, all those different things on a daily basis kind of kept us motivated. If they can do it, we can do it.
I think that's a great point. There's something about this virtual community that we're all a part of that can keep you going, especially when you hear other people who are fighting for gigantic goals like you guys have. So there was a moment in time when you guys crossed over this debt-free kind of level with your student debt. Tell us about that. And then at that point, what did you do to start building wealth on the other side to grow your net worth to where it is today?
Yeah, so so when we actually crossed over, I think my son was about 7 or 8 months, which that was a whole ordeal in and of itself because we ended up doing IVF because we had fertility issues. So we ended up paying for that out of pocket. Remember, I said we made a pact that we would not create any debt. And so we didn't. We actually worked and worked and worked and paid for that out of pocket as well. So when my son was finally born, which he actually wasn't born through IVF, and that's another story for another podcast, but we felt so relieved. I remember we were at his parents' house and we had made the final payment, remember? And we took that picture and we posted it on social media. And we were just so excited, so elated. I wanted to eat steak that night, but his mother wasn't cooking steak. So we ate whatever she made, but you know what? In my mind, it tasted like steak.
I'll tell my mom that. You never told her that.
Yeah. No, it was great. And for me, that accomplishment, especially when we realized it was the 3-year mark that we had paid it off from when we started, it just let me know that we could essentially accomplish anything. And so from there, it was like, well, you know what? If we could pay this off in 3 years, we definitely could build wealth. Like, let's start doing things that will help us, on this journey of building wealth. But I will tell you that decreasing that debt burden was the biggest part of increasing our net worth. That was the biggest part.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that was a huge parachute while we're trying to sprint. That was holding us back.
Yeah. And so we started thinking about different ways to build wealth. We started investing. Well, we were investing already, but we started investing more aggressively. We bought a real estate property. So, we have several business ventures as well. Our podcast, Docs Outside the Box, is one of them. I have a business for pre-meds, and our business of contracting ourselves as doctors. Actually, we had grown that over about 3 years. We've since kind of downsized that to be able to focus on other business ventures, but all of that really helped us to build our net worth over time.
I love it. And those 3 areas that you focused on, investing in stocks, investing in real estate or buying real estate, and then buying and growing businesses. That's the millionaire secret sauce. Would you not agree?
I hope so. I hope so, because I'm dipping my bread into it. Let me tell you.
Yeah. And we'll be very honest. Like, a lot of people say, all you got to do is just, get this is all you have to do to get passive income. These are the steps that you need to do to do passive income. It could be tough, right? It could be hard and stuff. And sometimes you feel like, all right, I don't know how this is going to turn out, but I know that I'm heading in the positive direction, right? Like, we are testing ourselves and pushing ourselves to do certain things, property manage on our own possibly, or look for more properties. It could be frustrating. And I think that the key thing for people who are listening is that sometimes you may feel like, I don't know how this is going to turn out, but you just know that the process is making you better. Or you end up listening to a podcast and you find that somebody else is going through the same issues as you. So there's really not that, you don't have that easy ability to kind of go backwards and say, I give up. You just know that, well, if that person can push through, then I can push through. If this entire community is working its way through it, then why can't I?
Right.
And that's been the thing for us. That's why when she says, I hope so, it's like, yeah, like, we know this is the way, but also at the same time, there's like sometimes when you're just like, I don't know how this is going to turn out. But I do know the status quo is unacceptable, and that's where we're at.
Exactly.
I love that. Well, you guys are at a level right now. I mean, talk about your journey on marriage, being almost $1 million in debt, now having over $1 million net worth. What's exciting you now? What looks in the future, and you say, wow, that's what we want to do now?
I think 30,000 foot view. How me and Renee were before we pay, or even who we were before we started paying off the debt. is not the same. We're not the same people
Right.
as when we paid off that debt that same, that year in 2017 versus how we are now. And what I mean by that is we enjoy taking care of patients. We enjoy the process of taking care of very sick patients. I'm a trauma surgeon. I enjoy that. But I think we also understand the limitations that we have as individual doctors in this healthcare complex. And what I mean by that is it's very easy to feel like you're in a box. And as a result, I think that we've realized that, there's only so much that we can do in this system. And the way how we're going to be able to leave our legacy, not only for our kids, but also for other doctors, is to kind of step away from the box, kind of step away from the matrix, and kind of create wealth, create legacy on our own. So that's why the podcast has started. That's why we made it a business. That's why she's working on, trying to increase as many underrepresented minorities in medicine as possible, but taking more of a profit model as opposed to, the only way we can make money is going into the hospital.
Right.
So it's a shift in mindset.
Yeah.
And that's been really huge.
Yeah.
I think she reached that point earlier than I did. I think for me, the epiphany happened a little bit later on, but it feels great to be on the same page. So we enjoy taking care of patients, but also at the same time, we've realized that, there's other ways that we can make money, but there's also ways that we can help and have an impact in society outside of just, operating and taking care of people, delivering babies.
Yeah, I think this is beautiful. What a main theme that I keep hearing from you guys is community service and giving back. And I know you're doing that with your podcast. Tell me about your podcast. Tell people where they can listen to it.
Yeah. So Docs Outside the Box has been out for about 7 years now, right? We're creeping up on 8, but it's a podcast about money, medicine, and pop culture. Anything from what happened with Tom Brady and football and his career, all the way to student loan payments for physicians, all the way to negotiating. We cover a whole bunch of different things, and we do it in a fun manner. And you can find it anywhere where you're listening to this podcast or you're listening to music. So that's Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever it is. That's where you can find it.
Excellent. Thank you both for being here today. Yeah, if you learned something today, if you were inspired today, and if you laughed a little bit today, you should definitely check out the podcast. These two are great. Thank you both so much for your time today. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Andy.
Thank you, Andy.